before we kick this off?
And we are live.
Awesome. Well, guys, I want to introduce you to someone who's a good friend and a good coach in this real estate space. Someone that I have a lot of admiration for, and he was with us last week, and he's going to be with us again next week on Monday. So you guys can expect to see him again on Monday. But I want to tee this up for Kevin because I don't know exactly all of the nuggets that he's going to share with us today, but I do know one thing. Burnout is a very real thing, and burnout in this industry is probably, I'd say, the number one indicator for why someone got pushed out of the industry. And so I'm super excited to learn from Kevin today. I'm a student every time that Kevin talks. So Kevin, the room is yours. You can ask questions, you can engage, but the platform is yours, buddy.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. If you weren't on the call last week or if you didn't watch the recording, I'm super excited that you're here. Hopefully you'll get a little bit of value and really some tactical things that you can apply to your business, no matter where you are in your business, whether you're brand new or whether you've been doing this for years. So today we're going to talk about, because of just kind of the where we are in the year, for most places around the country, we're coming to that peak of our business where the natural trend of the business is somewhere between July, August, September, and it can be rough. If you're out there lead genning, you're getting leads from Cloud Realty, and you're converting them, you can put 2 or 3 or 4 people in your pipeline, and they can be stressful. And although those are the things we want, without the systems and the leverage that sometimes we don't have, it can definitely be stressful. So I wanted to talk today really about how you can manage that, and then how you can manage it going into the fall and the winter time, so that maybe next year you won't have that same stress, or you'll have a different stress. I always say this, that most people wish that they didn't have their problems, but when you if you were to play the lottery and you won, right, it would be an awesome thing. You get a ton of money in the next 24 hours, or at least the ability to, but you'd still have a problem, right? It would be a problem of, okay, now what do I've got to do with the money? I need to hire a lawyer. I don't need to tell anybody, all those things. So we're really not trying to get rid of problems. We're just trying to have better problems. And so the reality is as we go through this business and as we build our business through real estate or lending or title or whatever, the reality is that we're just trying to get to the better problems. And a lot of that comes from leverage. It comes from being intentional about how we actually schedule our day, and how we schedule what we schedule in our day, and then what maybe that we can pass off to others. So let's talk about this for a second. A lot of realtors, I've coached thousands of realtors now, from 0 to $100 million producing teams. And no matter where you are in the business, one of the main problems or opportunities that a realtor would have is leads, right? Cloud Realty produces leads. It's the kind of, I always say, sales solve all problems. So the more sales you have, the more you still have problems, but the reality is they're just better problems. Now you got leverage, you got things like that, but sales does solve all problems. If you want to hire an assistant, close more deals. If you want to hire a buyer's agent, close more deals, right? And then you have the resources to do that. But the reality is most of us think that the leads solve the problem, and the leads aren't really the problem. It usually is how we're appearing, how we're showing up when those leads are happening. If you have a lead problem because you don't have enough leads in your pipeline, without exception, I've actually coached even internationally, but I've mainly coached in the United States. And one of the things that I know in most major markets, thousands of transactions are closing every single month. And regardless of where you are, if you're in a major metropolitan area, I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we close somewhere around 9,000 homes a month. Our job as real estate agents is we don't create the business. We just get in the way of the people who have already decided to do the transaction, either buy, sell, or invest. And so the reality is, if you have a lead flow problem, usually what it is you're just not having enough conversations to the people who have already decided to do the thing. So you're either not in the path of that business, or maybe, just maybe, we may be in the path, but we're not reaching out, and we're not having those conversations, and we're not closing the deal, given our value proposition, all those things. But once you kind of figure that out, leads not usually the problem. Usually what it is agents get burned out, they get tired, they forget why they got in this business to begin with. Like if you've been doing this, I've been doing this now for 13 years. I've been a business owner for over 30. And I will tell you that, you can lose sight, especially if you're not focused on it, you can lose sight of the actual reason why we got into the business. And those reasons can vary. It can be you want to help people, you like real estate, you watched a lot of HGTV, whatever it is, we get into this business for different reasons. And, especially as you start to get busy, you put your head down, you go to work, and a lot of times we can lose sight of that, and we start focusing on the minute things that just kind of get under your skin, or, deals that kind of go sideways sometimes, all that kind of stuff. So when I got in this business, and this was back in 2012, 2013, the market was real similar to what the market is now across most of the nation. It was a little bit higher interest rate, wasn't what it is now, but it was a little bit more of a even market in the real estate industry. And I had to put my head down, go to work, and I closed 24 deals my first year in DFW, and I was burnt out at the end of the year because it was all hustle. There was no cloud realty at the time. There was no Facebook ads, stuff like that was just coming on the scene. It was literally just put your head down, open houses for sale by owners, talking to your sphere, doing the networking, and what happens is you kind of lose that light. You lose that. You're so involved in the grind, you lose the light, and so I had to actually step back and start to reevaluate. I'd made more money than I made in any one year, and I was contemplating not getting in this business. Staying in the business because it was just so stressful. But then I realized, luckily, I had a coach. I've had a coach since day one. I was a football coach before this, so it made sense for always to have somebody in your corner that can see things that you can't see. And that coach came to me and he goes, "Man, you're killing it. But but you have no systems. You have you're doing everything. You're wearing all the hats, right?" I had a transaction coordinator that I paid per transaction. That was it. And then I had to step back and go, okay, I actually need to build this business. I actually need to step back and take some of those hats off and give them to somebody who's actually better at it than I am. So it was first admin, then eventually a showing assistant and things like that. So I'm going to give you guys today, if you'll allow me, I'm going to give you an acronym that maybe you can filter through. Maybe you're stressed. Maybe you're at that point. Maybe you're stressed about leads. Maybe you're stressed about one particular part of your business, or maybe you're working with a certain type of buyer or a certain type of seller that is not really where you want to be. Like maybe you want to be luxury, but you're working with first-time home buyers. How do you actually step back and create that plan so that you can then accomplish what you're trying to accomplish in this business? Because this is what I know. You can do anything in this business you want, and this business can give you absolutely the hero story that you have in your head. The financial opportunity that's in real estate is bigger than almost any other industry out there. But we've got to be tactical about it. We've got to actually build the business and not just chase the commission check, which is unfortunately a lot of agents that are in and out of this business. They're just constantly chasing that commission check, and they're never actually sitting down and building the business side of what we do. So I'm going to give you an acronym today that hopefully will help you kind of think about this a little bit differently, or maybe at least give you an idea of maybe something you can work on. So the acronym is called RISE, R-I-S-E, and you can write this down if you want, R-I-S-E. So let's start with R. First is reflect. I do a lot of things in my life now that I didn't do 12 years ago. And a lot of it has to do around reflection. It's getting up in the morning a little bit earlier than I used to. It's going to work out. It's doing cold plunging. It's doing my journaling time. And I used to be sporadic at it. Now it's almost become like, when you're hungry, most of us eat, right? and so it's kind of that same standard now in my life. Like I have to do it, or I just notice that my day looks different. It feels different. I don't have the energy. I don't show up the way I want to my clients and to the calls like this. And so I have to, even though sometimes, you don't want to do it, I've never regretted, like after I've worked out or after I've done my journaling or after I've I've never gone, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that, right? It's you always, when you get to the other side, you go, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I pushed through. I'm glad I had that extra oomph today, just get out of bed anyway. So the reflection is, here's a couple of questions you can ask yourself. What used to excite you What used to excite you in this business that doesn't anymore? What used to excite you in this business that doesn't anymore? I'll give you an example of mine. I built my first 2 years off of open houses because I was a football coach coming out of a private school coaching program, and I got into business, and I had 2 months worth of income in my bank account, and I was broke as a joke. That was the starting point of my journey. And so I didn't have a lot of money, so I started open houses. I'm a people person. I like talking to people, and so it made sense. And I did 8 open houses a month for almost 2 years, pretty consistently. I do two in a day. I got where I could do 2 in one day, and so I love doing that because I got to talk to people all the time. What I love about open houses is if you do the right things and you do the right marketing around it, whole separate class, people actually walk in the door and want to have a conversation, right? It's like, wow, I don't have to find them. There they are. They're opening the front door. Now, what you talk about and how you kind of figure out who they are in that conversation. But I've never had anybody walk in an open house and go, I don't like houses, don't like real estate. I'm just here for the cookies. Like, I've never had anybody say that. And I've coached thousands of realtors to open houses. I've never heard that story. Everybody walks to an open house has a real estate question. It may not be buying the house, but they have a question that we can serve them. And so I love doing that. But then over time, because I started building a team, I started coaching, it got where I was just like, man, I can't do open houses. It's just draining me because it's like I wasn't filling my tank, if that makes sense. I wasn't taking that time to fill the tank. So what maybe when you first got in this business, you were so excited to do, but maybe it kind of doesn't feel that anymore. Just write that down. Number 2, what's one part of the real estate that you love that you haven't done in a while? So I've got an agent that I coach that is a listing agent, okay? And she knows because listings last, even though in the market we're in, I always say still go get listings because listings, you get to do open houses. You get to have buyer leads. So even if you have a listing, if you do it right and you market it right, you're still going to get those buyer leads and they're all going to be yours. You don't have to worry about sharing with everybody else. And so, but what's that thing that you love that you haven't done in a while? But here's the thing with that agent. She loved working with buyers. She loved the process of going to the houses and going through that process. But because she's gotten so busy, she had to step back and just kind of focus on listings, and she's hired a buyer's agent. Well, when I talked to her, I was like, do a buyer a month, just take a buyer a month and fill that tank up. If that's something you love to do, yes, you could build a business where you're buyer heavy and you farm out your listings, but it's a little more difficult to do that. But the reality is just if you love something about real estate, if you love a specific thing and maybe you haven't been doing it, figure out a way to put it back in your schedule, whether it's once a month so that it's something to look forward to, or maybe you can leverage another part of your business so then you can focus on that. There are people out there and there are realtors, maybe it's you, that love the actual appointments, but you don't really like the process behind that appointment. Like maybe you're a closer and you like to go in, you're a headhunter, you close the deal, but then the process of actually having to deliver on that product, maybe that's not what you can hire people to do that. You can leverage that, right? And so figuring those things out takes some reflection. It takes a little bit of time. We're almost into August, and I do a coaching clinic, a business coaching clinic in October of every year because our business is a 90-day business. And so whatever you're doing in October, you're really doing it for December and January. So when I talk about that, I talk about the fact of stepping back and actually trying to just figure out what your perfect business is. It's your business, right? You created it. You're the one who decided to get in this crazy thing called real estate. So instead of just letting the business run you, maybe step back a little bit and reflect and start to run your business. Okay, number 2, in the acronym RISE, identify. What kind of clients? Okay, here's a question. And you can get all these, and write this down. I would love to hear from you too at the end of this, maybe some ahas. But what kind of client lights you up? Like what kind of client, when you work with them, just lights you up? I have a course, my whole coaching program is around uncovering, discovering, and realizing the hero in your own story. And the number one question you have to ask is who you are. You have to go do that deep work about who am I and how do I show up? And then who do I want to show up next to me? What's that client look like? We can work with anybody, every single demographic, every single socioeconomic, every single personality buys and sells houses, right? But then if we're not intentional, we'll just find the next one and just grab them. And then it may not be a great experience. We may get we may get it closed, but it may not feel like you want to do it. But you can actually build a business where at least a majority, if not all of your people, are people that you love working with. Like when I started working on the avatar work and started working on my perfect client, they started showing up. And it was awesome because my perfect client is someone who wants to go look at houses and then go have a beer and talk about it. You know, they want to celebrate their closing by taking me out to dinner and, you know, having some drink. That's my perfect client because that's kind of who I am. I like to socialize. And then when I would have somebody who didn't like any of that, it was like, it felt like clunky. It felt like, oh, this is just hard work. And so showing up and actually doing that work of just identifying who you want to work with, again, you're probably still going to work with everybody. But what if you could work with 25 or 30% of the people that you really enjoy? Maybe it's an area of town, maybe it's luxury, maybe it's first-time home buyers. But really, because what happens is when you start identifying, you can start building your processes, and you start building your marketing, and you start building your messaging to attract those people, if that makes sense. Here's the next question. What kind of day do you want to have? This is a big one. Most agents wake up in the morning, you know, hopefully you have a routine in the morning, but let's say you don't, you grab some coffee, you fix yourself up, maybe you go to the office, maybe you go to your home office, and then the day happens. What's that day look like? Whatever the day looks like, right? You know, but a lot of people, I would say 95% of the population, that's kind of how their day looks. It just kind of, whatever happens, happens. But we have the opportunity to plan our day, to actually set out the intention of our day. It starts with making sure you have a calendar, something simple like that. But then also, what are the 2 or 3 things that you need to get done so that your business moves forward? And then everything else in between. If you can just get those 2 or 3, and I always say don't fit any more than 3 things, okay? That are like absolute, have to get them done. Don't put your head on the pillow at night until it gets done, and then do them first. Because if you do those first and you're at 12 or 1 o'clock and you've knocked out those 3 things, the day's awesome. No matter what happens after that, you've accomplished the thing that you want to accomplish. It doesn't have to be big. It could be reaching out to 5 people. It could be going on an appointment, doing a networking. It could be anything, but making sure that it's focused on creating that business that you really want to create after you reflected on it. Next question. What do you want to become? This big one. What do you want to become in 12 months? What do you want to become in 12 months? The reality is most people, most agents that I have coached, I literally had a coaching call, an in-person coaching conversation last week with an agent who had moved from one state to another, and they had been doing this business for 25 years. So experienced agent, right? And they were doing it in California, so there was a high price point, all the good things. And I asked her, what does she want to make in the next 12 months? You know what her answer was? I've never thought of that. And I was like, as a coach, I was like, oh my gosh, how do you get to a destination if you have nowhere to go? If you don't even know where you're going to go? And more importantly, the next question I asked is, what are you closing right now? Well, I really don't know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you get to a destination if you don't know where you're starting from, right? We turn on Waze or Apple, and the very first question it asks, I mean, you type it in, but it asks, where are you going? You type that in. The very next question is, where are you? And then once it gets those 2 points, it then can create a roadmap for you to get there. Our business is exactly the same way. And if you don't, what winds up happening, much like it would be if we didn't have that, you'd be driving around trying to go somewhere that you don't really want to know where you're going and wondering why it feels confusing, really why it feels like you're frustrated because you just don't have a plan. So making sure that you at least look 12 months out. In my business planning clinic, we go 1 through 5. So we go 5 years out, which is hard to predict, but you can start getting a little bit of blurry picture out there. But 1 year, there's a, I don't know if you've heard this statement, but it says that most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 3. Think about that. You can be anybody and be anywhere you want, obviously, unless it's athletic related. Like I'm never going to be a basketball player. I know you can't tell. I'm not 6 foot tall, so it's not going to happen, right? But you can be anything you want if you have to put it 5 years out. But most people say, well, I just want to make $200,000 within 5 years. And it's like, you could do that a lot quicker than that in real estate. But the reality is we also overestimate. Like I've not closed 3 deals this year, but next year I want to close 30. And it's like, okay, that's a lot of learning between 3 and 30 of how to actually do that. So at least looking out 12 months and go, where do I want to be? And I always say it this way, look out 12 months and look back. And if you go, what was the perfect year? What was that year that you high five yourself? You get a manicure and a pedicure because you rocked it. What are those things? You start writing them down. And if you start writing them down, what's going to happen is you're going to start visualizing, how do I get there? Okay, so that's identify. Next one, S, simplify. Simplify. Most of us make things way more complicated than we need to. One of my coaches used to tell me, this business is extremely simple, just not easy. And it's true. What do we do at the end of the day? We look for people to buy, sell, invest in real estate, and we help them. That's pretty simple, right? But we make it a lot more complicated. It's not easy to do that, but it's not complicated either, okay? The reality is we just need to get in the way of the people who are already decided that they want to buy or sell or invest in real estate. And then how we do that is how we build a business. So here's 3 ways to simplify your calendar and your frustration and maybe your overwhelm, and just kind of cut a lot of that out. So here's 3 ways. Number 1, cut what drains you. I would encourage you throughout between now and the end of the year, especially if you're doing a business planning clinic, and I would encourage you to do that. I'm going to do a national call at some point, and you guys probably will give registration if you want to do it, but there's a lot of them out there. But start identifying the things that you don't like. Like, I am not a transaction coordinator kind of person. Like, that's not me. And I've done 5 of them. I did my first 5, and I found this process where, and I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know how it is in most states, in all the states, but I know in most states, you can hire someone. Check this out. You can hire someone for somewhere between $250 to $400, maybe $500. You don't have to pay them unless you close. And when you close, that's when they get paid. When I found that out, I'm like, wait a minute, wait. In Texas, you get paid at the closing table. I know not every state's that way. I said, so you're telling me someone can handle all of the stuff that I don't want to handle on the contract side, or making sure it gets to the title company, making sure all this, doing all the follow-ups, all that stuff. Once I get under contract, and they will assure me that as long as all that stuff gets done, I get paid. Like, the check's there. I'm like, done, son. That's worth a lot more than $400 to me, to not have to worry about all that, because it took me 5 times longer than it would take a person who does it, because it's not something that gives me energy. It's something that kills me. It's like fingers on a chalkboard. So what are those things? Identify what those are. And then figure out a way to give them to somebody else. It doesn't mean they don't necessarily get done. They don't need to get done, but you need to give them to whether it's another agent, whether it's a coordinator, whether it's an assistant, okay? And then delegate what delays you. So if there's anything in your world that, and I know Sean is big on this, but VAs can help you speed your business, okay? The reality is, if something's delaying you because maybe it's a learning issue, maybe it's something in tech, we'll figure out how you can close another deal to then hire that out, and you will go faster and you will make more money. Even though you have to give a little bit more out, you'll actually make more, because then you can focus on what you're good at. Lastly, this is the big one too. Double down on what drives you. So we got in this business. I don't think anybody got in this business to be sad and angry and frustrated and all that. We got in this business because we wanted to be energized. We wanted to have our freedom, time freedom, money freedom, whatever it is. So double down on the things that you like to do. Like, the reason why I did 2 a week of open houses, because I literally loved to do it when I was doing it. Because that was the part, like, I literally averaged 7 people per open house, and I closed 1 deal for every 4 open houses I did. That was my stats. And so I was like, that means I can close 2 deals a month just from doing open houses, and I just get to talk to people all day? That's awesome. Now, that's not everybody, I get it, but what are those things? Double down on them. If you like doing networking, do more of it. But you have to get some of that other stuff out of your way so that you can. All right, let's land the plane. E, energize. E, energize. Here's how you need to refuel, or here's how some ways you can. Get around a community. You're in a community right now. I would encourage you. I have a coaching community of it's going on 1,900 agents right now. And we literally love on each other. Now, this could be a brokerage. It could be a peer group. It could be a networking group, be a B&I group. But this business can be very lonely if we're not careful. And we have to be in community. Most people get into real estate, have a social side to them, okay? If you didn't have a social side and you were all numbers, you'd be an inspector. I coach in the inspection world, trust me. Most inspectors, they're not people. Some are, but most aren't. We get in the business because for the most part, we like talking to people at some level. And so we have to have that energy because it can get lonely, especially when you get busy. When you get busy and you're just focused on your business, all of a sudden you look up and you really hadn't talked to anybody just in the business for a few weeks. And COVID, blew that wide open. I was walking down the trails by where I live, just like saying hi to people, random people, because I hadn't been able to see anybody in person. That's how lonely it got. So be around community. Number 2, get a win. Get a win, big or small, okay? Just big or small, it doesn't matter. Like a perfect example is if you always wanted to work out in the morning and maybe you just haven't been able to do it one day, and then you can high five yourself, okay? And maybe that's the win for the day. Maybe it's not getting a contract or doing a listing appointment, or maybe it is, but maybe it's just a small thing. Start stacking those wins, and if you start small, what'll happen is I think I said this last week with we lie to ourselves more than we lie to anybody else. It's the person in the mirror. Start doing what you say you're going to do and start stacking some of these smaller wins, and your confidence in yourself will continue to grow and start to grow. And then you're going to start having confidence on some of the bigger things that you're trying to tackle. Lastly, zoom out. Literally, get perspective. A lot of times we look at our problems because they're right there in front of us, and we feel like they're so big that they just kind of blind us to the fact that they're probably not as big as we think they are. There's a saying out there that 99% of everything we worry about never comes true. Think about that. 99% of the stuff that we worry about never comes true. But we put that in our mind, we keep it in our mind space, and we allow it to dictate our emotions and who we are and the things that are just not good, especially in our business. We have to have positive attitudes. We have to show up for our clients. We have to be the voice of reason. And so just making sure that you do that on a regular basis, using RISE. You can use anything. This is just a great acronym that I came across years ago and I've implemented in my own life. So let's go over it again. RISE, R, reflect, I, identify, S, simplify, and then E, energize. If you will do those 4 things and you'll run a filter, I have a filter through the HEROES acronym, but if you will run a filter through this as you're building your business, you're going to find out that your life's going to start to change, and more importantly, how you show up is going to change. And so I encourage you guys to get involved in this community, continue to lean into whatever people that you've got around you, join my group, but just make sure that you become the hero of your own story simply by living it out and starting to create that roadmap to where you want to go. And with that, I'm done.
Kevin, thank you for being your man. I took a bunch of notes here. Guys, I want to do a recap on some of the steps because you also gave us a lot of steps here. And Kevin, I just want to say thank you for being here and thank you for pouring into our agents and for everyone who's attending live. Kevin, a quick recap on your steps. So step 1, carve out time to reflect no matter what. The question to ask yourself, what in real estate used to excite you that doesn't anymore? Step 2, what's the thing that you love but you don't do anymore? What is that thing, that specific thing that you don't do anymore in real estate? Step number 3, what type of client do you actually like? And I have a question for you that I'd like for you to expand on. But that's a great question. What type of client do you actually like? I remember in 2020, 21, everyone wanted sellers. And now things have changed a little bit. Listings are sitting a lot longer than they used to. I remember back in the day when you had a house that sold less than 90 days, that was good. Nowadays on markets above 60 and people are like biting their nails, getting real nervous about things, So that's a good question to ask. Step number 4, what kind of day do you want to have? What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of schedule, what kind of week do you want to have? And what are those 2 or 3 things that you need to get done in order for that day to be quote unquote successful in your eyes? What are those 2 or 3 things? Step number 5, what do you want to become in the next 12 months? What do you want to make in the next 12 months? That is a great question. I know it sounds like so basic and so like wow, Kevin, nothing novel here. But oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many agents, I'm sure you do the same. I've talked to these guys and you're like, what do you want to make in the next 12 months? I'm like, well, I made 80 last year, so I'd like to make more than that. And that's about their only targets. I want to make more than I did last year, which is a good target, but let's get more specific. Step number 6, cut what drains you. I love, this is my favorite one. Cut what drains you, give them to someone else, delegate what delays you, and double down on what drives you. That's a huge one right there. I mean, we could probably spend a whole hour on just step 6 right here. And then number 7, get into a community, collect those wins, and zoom out and get perspective, get outside perspective. Kevin, you're an expert in your own field, but then you enter a new room and all of a sudden you're not the expert anymore. And then all of a sudden you're the student and now you're learning, and
speed conversation between me and Sean this morning.
and you know what, that's what we need though. We need perspective. We need someone to tell us, hey, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. And that's why we actually have on Thursdays our call reviews, because so many agents were getting live call transfers and we pass them pre-approval after pre-approval after pre-approval. And then the same thing kept coming up. Well, they're just not serious. They're just da, 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 da. But then we look them up on RPR and it turns out that they're transacting with someone else. So what the heck? What's going on? Get in the community, get perspective, get feedback. I love all of this. This was a great call. I have one specific question for you, Kevin. And that's just on, and I know we like to end on time, so I'll keep this super short. How do we do more of step number 3? Finding out which clients that, like what type of clients do we actually like? So how do we do more of that? Because we all want that perfect buyer that says, hey, I'm right outside a model home and I'm unrepresented. Can you come sign some docs with me? We all love that. And yes, that's like the perfect scenario, but how do we actually get more people that we like? What's the first
I think the big misnomer for most agents, because most agents get in this business and they come from a service-based business, not all, but most, and so they don't have a lot of sales background. And one of the things that's a sales conversation is if everybody was a W-2 for 20 years, owned a house that was underpriced, that they wanted to underprice it on a listing, and they wanted to overpay for a buy for their new house, right? So those are the perfect scenarios. If everybody was like that, we wouldn't get paid what we get paid. They wouldn't need, we wouldn't get paid 2 to 3% of a commission of $200 to $1 million because they wouldn't need us. It'd be called order taking. We get paid to solve problems. So I always tell agents, don't focus on like the perfect buyer or the perfect seller as far as the process. Focus on the person that you want to actually interact with for 30 days, because that's what you're going to be doing. So, and whether that's a demographic, whether it's a socioeconomic, whether it's a type of buyer, type of seller, those are the things. And I basically 2-step process. Number 1, you have to know who you are. So I always say, why you? Okay, if there's 30,000, like in DFW, there's 50,000 agents in DFW at any one time. Why you? Why are they going to pick you? Okay, so you got to answer that question. And then who do you like hanging out with? If you could hang out with anybody, no matter your background, who can hang out to anybody? Is it luxury people? Is it people that are high net worth? Is it people who are struggling for their first home? And there's none of those answers are wrong. But once you start identifying, then you can build a marketing and you can build a business around it. So that would be my advice.
That's a huge golden nugget. Find the problem. Like not specifically to the person, because you're right, everyone does look for that unicorn, but find the problem that you're most comfortable, most excited about solving. That's fantastic. That's a great golden nugget right there. All right, guys, before we shut the room down, we always want to remind you that every time that we have one of these calls, our intention and our promise to you is that you're going to know more than you knew coming into the call, and you're going to know exactly how to implement in your business that same day. So did you guys feel like we kept that promise today? Yeah, awesome, awesome. Kevin, I look forward to seeing you again next week. And guys, tomorrow we're going to have Tech Tuesday. It's going to be Heather and myself. We're going to dive into communities, more about the technology. On Wednesday, we're going to invite another one of our agents who has closed recently a transaction. You guys get to interview them, ask them a question. Hey, how are you closing? How are you setting an in-person meeting? So you guys get to get intimate with someone who's closing transactions. And then on Thursday, if you guys have a call review, if you guys had a live call transfer recently, if you guys say, hey, pick my stuff apart, that's what we're going to do on Thursday, okay? And then on Friday, we're going to do a recap and power hour. And same time, same link. And Kevin, I just want to say thank you again for being here, poured into these wonderful agents, and I look forward to seeing you again on Monday.
All right. Peace and love, everybody.
See you.
Y'all have a great week. Go crush it.